What really happens when a Toyota hybrid and a regular Toyota gas engine are pushed to 200,000 miles under the same conditions? We wanted to find out, so we compared a 2.5-litre Toyota hybrid powertrain against a 2.0-litre Toyota gas engine through city traffic, highway cruising, long-distance driving, and even light towing. Same oil type, same maintenance routine, same driving style, and every repair, fuel stop, and replacement part was tracked. But by the end of the test, the result was not what most people would expect. One engine costs more, works harder, and shows more wear. And the answer may completely change how you look at Toyota hybrids. Now let's break down exactly what this test was designed to prove, because this matters for anyone trying to choose between a Toyota hybrid and a regular gas-powered Toyota. On one side, we had Toyota's 2.5-litre hybrid system. This setup combines a 2.5-litre dynamic force 4-cylinder engine with electric motor generators and a hybrid battery pack, which can be nickel-metal hydride or lithium-ion depending on the model. You'll find versions of this powertrain in vehicles like the Toyota RAV4 Hybrid, Camry Hybrid, Highlander Hybrid, and Venza. Depending on the application, output sits around 218 to 219 horsepower. On the other side, we tested Toyota's 2.0-litre naturally aspirated dynamic force gas engine, the same basic family used in models like the Corolla, Corolla Cross, base RAV4, and other markets. In many applications, it produces about 169 horsepower and represents Toyota's modern non-hybrid gas engine technology. So this was not an old engine versus a new one. Both were modern Toyota powertrains. The real question was simple. After 200,000 miles, which one was cheaper to own, which one held up better, and which one still felt closest to new? During the first 50,000 miles, both vehicles were almost trouble-free. The gas model was slightly simpler to maintain, needing routine oil changes, filters, tire rotations, wiper blades, and one set of front brake pads. By the 50,000-mile mark, total maintenance came to roughly $780 using independent shop pricing. For the hybrid, the first 50,000 miles looked very similar on paper. The 2.5-litre hybrid engine also used 0W20 full synthetic oil at the same 10,000-mile intervals, and the engine air filter and cabin air filter followed the same basic schedule. But this is where the first real difference started to show up. The hybrid simply was not wearing through its brakes the same way the gas vehicle was. By 50,000 miles, the gas model had already needed front brake pads and was getting close to needing front rotors. The hybrid, however, still had more than 60% of its original front brake pad material left. That comes down to regenerative braking. In normal driving, the hybrid uses its electric motor generator to slow the vehicle before relying heavily on the friction brakes. That one difference saved the hybrid roughly $340 by the 50,000-mile mark. Fuel cost was an even bigger gap. Across our mixed driving route, the gas model averaged about 30.4 miles per gallon, while the hybrid averaged around 41.7 miles per gallon. Over 50,000 miles, with fuel averaging about $3.42 per gallon, the gas vehicle used roughly 1,644 gallons, costing about $5,623. The hybrid used about 1,199 gallons, costing around $4,100. So before even talking about purchase price, the hybrid was already ahead by roughly $1,860 in fuel and brake savings. But from 50,000 to 100,000 miles, the comparison became even more interesting. At the 60,000-mile mark, both vehicles needed spark plug service. The gas engine used iridium spark plugs, and a full set was not especially expensive. Parts were around $140, and because the plugs are easy to access from the top of the engine, labor at an independent shop was fairly low, around $65. The hybrid needed the same type of service at the same interval. Its 2.5-litre dynamic force engine also uses iridium spark plugs, so there was no real cost advantage for either vehicle in this area. But as the miles climbed, the hybrid started showing one difference that the gas vehicle obviously did not have: battery cooling behavior in hot weather. On days above 95 degrees Fahrenheit, the hybrid battery cooling fan became much more noticeable, especially in stop-and-go traffic. That is because this Toyota hybrid system pulls cabin air through a rear seat intake area to help cool the battery pack. So when the cabin is hot, or the air conditioning is working hard, the battery cooling system also has to work harder. We monitored the hybrid battery with a Toyota-compatible scan tool, checking capacity and cell balance. At 100,000 miles, the battery still showed about 91.3% of its original rated capacity, which remained within a healthy range for this mileage. The 100,000-mile service was the biggest maintenance point so far. The gas vehicle needed coolant service, brake fluid service, transmission fluid replacement, belt inspection, and a general drivetrain check. At independent shop pricing, that service came to roughly $520. At 100,000 miles, the hybrid needed many of the same basic services as the gas model. It received coolant service, brake fluid service, and fluid service for its electronic continuously variable transaxle. But the hybrid had one small advantage. It does not rely on a traditional belt-driven accessory setup in the same way a regular gas vehicle does. For example, the air conditioning compressor is powered electrically by the high-voltage hybrid system instead of being driven by a belt from the engine. That removes some mechanical load and reduces the number of belt-related parts to inspect. The hybrid's 100,000-mile service came to about $470, which was slightly cheaper than the gas vehicle. But the bigger difference was still the brakes. By 100,000 miles, the gas vehicle had already gone through multiple sets of front brake pads and had needed front rotors around 78,000 miles. The hybrid still had its original front rotors, with about 35% of the original front pad material remaining. Total brake-related cost for the gas vehicle was around $890, compared with about $160 for the hybrid. That gave the hybrid roughly a $730 advantage in brake costs alone. Between 100,000 and 150,000 miles, we expected the hybrid battery to start showing more age. It did decline, but gradually. By 150,000 miles, capacity was about 86.1%, and fuel economy slipped from 41.7 miles per gallon earlier in the test to about 40.2 miles per gallon. Meanwhile, the gas vehicle had its first unscheduled repair at 127,000 miles when the PCV valve began sticking. The biggest surprise of this 200,000-mile test came from the hybrid, but not in the way many people might expect. At 162,000 miles, the hybrid developed its largest repair, a leaking inverter cooling pump connection. Because this system cools the inverter and motor generators separately from the engine, the vehicle went into reduced power mode until the pump and coolant were replaced. The total repair cost was about $487, making it the most expensive single unscheduled repair of the entire test. The gas vehicle had fewer complex systems, but it began showing normal high-mileage wear. By around 175,000 miles, it was using about half a quart of oil between services, while the hybrid engine still showed no measurable oil consumption increase. By 200,000 miles, the numbers were clear. The hybrid saved about $6,500 in fuel, around $920 in brake costs, and slightly more in scheduled maintenance. Even after factoring in its higher purchase price, the hybrid still came out ahead by roughly $3,000. But the real lesson is this: the hybrid wins when you drive enough miles, fuel prices stay meaningful, and the battery lasts. For low-mileage drivers, the gas engine still makes sense.